Good evening, everyone, and welcome to That Sewing Blab. We have a fantastic guest tonight, Melissa Mora. Is that how you say your last name?
Yes.
Good. From Melly Sews, among other things, which we'll get into later. There's a list. Yeah, she's done quite a lot. But first, as always, we just go over a little of the housekeeping. If you're watching on Crowdcast, please feel free to make lots of comments on the right-hand side in the comment box. And if you have any questions, we'll answer them in the second half of the show. If you just put them in the question and answers just below our photos. So, Alethia, how are you? I saw you on Facebook tonight, Facebook Live, and she was getting, you should have seen it, Melissa, a whole bunch of goodies. She was opening presents. It was awesome.
Yeah, it was wonderful. The Crafters and So Much Talent group are awesome. They decided to just shower me with gifts and things, just as a thank you to say we appreciate what you're doing with the groups. And it was overwhelming. Lots of stuff. I don't know if you can see behind me, but this is actually a pile of the fabric. You can't see it all, but piles of fabric and kinds of notions and tools, books, brownies. I mean, it's just a whole bunch of stuff. So, and just look at my inbox, still more things. And I just want to say a really quick shout out to Linda Swift because she obviously sent me a gift card, the second one from Joanne. I didn't get to mention because I didn't check my email. So thanks to Linda for watching. But yeah, that, and I did want to mention, I promised the girls that I mentioned we're wrapping up our workout gear challenge for this month. Today is the last day. And so many of you have done phenomenal jobs putting workout gear together. And let me just add, I think I buried my other pattern in this fabric, but I will know my pieces that I did. But one of them came from this Mimi G top that I cut the top, the skirt off, and just made the top. I utilized the top. And the pants came from a McCall's pattern that many of us have used. And so I don't know if you can see that piece back here. Let me grab it real quick. I have it on the mannequin. So I was thinking that I was going to fit on and show it to you, but I don't think that's going to happen right now. I'll show you. I will show you later in the group. But this is what I did with it. Added my little pocket on, and then my pants are, you all are familiar with the McCall's pants that has the two-tone fabric. So it came out really nice. I tried it on. I'm very excited about it, and really excited to go into this next challenge, tomorrow's challenge, which is the jean challenge, and that's going to be hosted by one of our So Much Talent crafters, Tanya Martin. So very excited about that. So how about y'all? What have you been up to this week?
I'm a little worried there's going to be an avalanche with the stuff behind you, Alethia, and all of a sudden we won't be able to see you anymore.
I know. It's pretty secure, I promise. I made sure of it. So thank you to all of you that crafters and So Much Talent. Thank you all so much. That was very nice. And my husband, I'm telling you, you should have seen the smile on his face. So he says thank you for blessing his boo. All right, I'm sorry. All right, so please tell me, I know you've been working on some designs.
Yes, well, actually, I don't know how Melissa does it, for example. She does these amazing videos, great lighting, great editing, great tutorials, probably something to do with her being a teacher in a past life. But editing takes forever. I've been editing this week. I'm like, holy cow. I think it would help if I didn't make so many mistakes. So then I wouldn't have to edit them all out. But yeah, so it's been a busy week, but it's been a lot of fun. Wow. Now, for the best part of the show, we get down to the nitty gritty and talk about the person who's in the hot seat. Melissa.
Yeah, for having me.
Oh, thank you for coming on. Yes, for those of you who don't know Melissa, which I can't believe, Melissa is from the blog. Oh, my husband's just dropping something. Sorry. Melissa's from the blog Melly Sews. That's not the only thing she does. She's not only on the blog, she's on YouTube. She has her own pattern company, Blank Slate Patterns. And you even released a book last summer.
Yes.
That is amazing. Like, I don't know, that being a businesswoman, a family, having a family, I don't know how you said it at all. But I think most of us would love to know, how did you start sewing?
How did I start sewing? I actually don't remember because my mom taught me when I was so young. I don't even remember learning, really. I remember learning the sewing machine because I think I was about 5 when she taught me that, but I already knew how to hand sew by that point. So it's just always been part of my life.
Wow, you must have been a patient child, because a lot of, I don't think I would have had the patience at 5 to do hand sewing. That's really impressive.
I was not very patient, actually, unless it was something that really interested me, like sewing. But I was also like a really lazy child. Like, I did not like physical exertion in any form. So sewing was great because I could just like sit inside and do that.
Oh, fabulous. So have you sewn your whole life, or did you take a break? Quite often we have people that learn to sew when they were younger, but then after their kids are grown or for some reason they get back into sewing.
No, it's pretty much been a constant for me. I started sewing my own clothing probably when I was in middle school with my mom's help. And it was always that I wanted something that like she wasn't going to spend the money for, or that didn't even exist even if she would spend the money for it, because I wanted it a certain way, or I wanted this sleeve with that top. So yeah, no, I've just always sewn clothing pretty much.
Cool. I was curious, what started you blogging? Because you've been blogging for quite a while and doing a fantastic job at it.
Thank you.
What was the original inspiration?
So after I had my second son, he was about a year old, and I was starting to get to the point where it was very hard to balance working outside the home with being able to take care of my kids and with my husband's job. My husband is a high school football coach, and we live in Texas. So there are 2 seasons in our house. There's football season and there's next football season that we're preparing for. So between that, and I used to teach theater in high school. So I was always at rehearsal. He was always at football practice. My mom was the one picking up the kids, and it was getting kind of untenable. So I took a job at a middle school instead of a high school because I thought I'd have more time to help, with all these family responsibilities. And what ended up happening was at the same time, I started an Etsy store because I couldn't find like handmade clothes that I wanted to buy for my children. So I started making it, and then I would sell some of it. And everybody on Etsy was like, you have to have a blog if you have an Etsy store. So I started a blog. And then I liked that much better than the Etsy store. And I discovered, I knew how to make sewing patterns, but I didn't know that you could make them as PDFs where people could download and print them. And so as soon as I made that discovery, I'm like, oh, well, I could do this. And so there was that year I was working in middle school, and I was blogging pretty much every night. And I made my first couple patterns that year. And then when we came to summer break, my husband and I talked about it, and we're like, okay, I'm going to quit, and we're going to give this a try and see if it goes up, how it goes. And then I can go back to teaching if it doesn't work out. And that was 5 years ago. So
that's fantastic.
I think it's worked out okay.
Yeah. You've done an awesome job. I've seen I've seen Melly Sews all over the place, whether it's Twitter, wherever you are. And it's always in association with the Melly Sews or Blank Slate Patterns. So tell us a little bit. You started to prelude to that, the Blank Slate Pattern. So what was your first pattern, and what actually prompted you to start making patterns? Did people start asking you for, what they saw you making, or did you decide, oh, well, let me try my hand at this?
Well, the first pattern that I made that was sold was a blazer pattern for my son. And it was because he was like 3 years old at the time, and nobody had a blazer pattern that was smaller than like a size 8. and I wanted to make him a blazer for, I think it was his Easter outfit that I wanted him to have, like a blazer. So I did the pattern, and then I posted something on the blog about his blazer, and people were like, oh, it's so cute, and I wish, you know, if you had a pattern, I wish you would share that. And so I figured out, like, okay, how do I digitize this? How do I turn it into a PDF? Then people bought it. I was amazed and thankful.
They look adorable.
Thank you.
They definitely, they just look so cute.
Thank you. Yeah, they're not quite that little and cute anymore. That was a few years ago, most of those pictures. But yeah, they're still good kids. They grow fast.
That's fun. Yeah, super fast. So what's your favorite? Because I see you range from the children's clothes. You have some women's clothes, women's patterns in there. I'm not sure if I saw any men's things in there, but what's your favorite pattern to work with?
I think generally I like to do women's clothing more because I've always liked to sew for myself. My kids still like me to sew for them, but they're actually, my older one is starting to outgrow my size range. So I'm gonna either have to expand my size range, or he's gonna have to start buying his clothes. So yeah, my favorite is definitely to do women. Although kids stuff is still fun to go back to because it's easy. They don't have the curves, and I don't have to include as much fitting information as I would in a women's pattern.
Wow.
Is that part of the reason why you made your book, fabulous book? I can put that here so people can see it.
So, Sundressing, yes. So I started the first year that I was writing my blog. I knew I was going on vacation in June, and I had seen other bloggers get like guest posters to fill in while they were on vacation. And I was like, okay, well, what could be good for June? Let's do sundresses, because I like to sew sundresses. I like to wear sundresses. And I like emailed all these, to me at the time, like really big time bloggers. And I was like, oh, well, you know, I'm just an honest person. And like several of them said yes. And I was so excited. So we had this series, and we posted like 30 different sundresses. And then it became kind of a thing. And I really enjoy doing it, that every summer now for the whole month of June, it's me and as many guest bloggers as I can accommodate posting about sundresses and our sundress makes. So when the publishing company started to talk to me about doing a book, the editor actually contacted me first, and she said, you know, we're interested in having you write a book, and we think sundressing or sundresses would be a great topic. And I was like, well, I like you already, because if I was going to pitch a book, this is what I would have pitched to you. So we just kind of took it from there.
That's exciting.
Wow.
It was.
So
writing a book is definitely. Oh, go ahead.
No, you go.
I was gonna say it's a lot of work.
I can imagine. So you had, when you were talking about your book, it's like everybody finds their niche, but when you were talking about your book, Sundresses, it reminded me of Goodbye Valentino's Tunic Bible, where she took the basic tunic top, and now she's made a whole book of just different ways that you can create tunics. And I think she had kind of the same concept of having different people, you know, make a particular type tunic. And so, you know, you turn it into a book, which is a creative idea, you know, a creative way to get that across. But what was your thought process when somebody contacted you, when you got that phone call and said, you know what, we like what you're doing and we want you to make a book. We want you to write a book about sundresses.
That one was not entirely out of the blue. I work with Baby Lock sewing machines, and their company is amazing to work with. And they had invited me to an event where I had met some editors. So I kind of, you know, I had expressed interest in writing a book, and the editor that I met was a quilting editor. And she passed my name on to the person in the garments division that I ended up working with. So yeah, it wasn't definitely completely not out of the blue. I think a more out of the blue story was when McCall's contacted me about printing some of my patterns, which they printed, and they've been on sale in Joann stores for a few years. So that was an email. I'm to this day, I'm not sure exactly how they found me. I mean, I assumed through my blog or something. But the first thing I did with that email was contact a friend who worked with a different pattern company and say, like, is this for real? Because I thought it was a joke. I was like Googling the phone number that was on the signature to like see what would come up, because I totally thought it was spam.
That's funny. So many people, we have several people that are doing patterns now, you know, that are creating their own patterns. As a matter of fact, we have our guest last week, I think she may still be on here, Cherie, with My Daily Threads. And she talks about working with, oh my gosh, the name slips my mind. Do you remember? Bootstrap patterns. So do you have a source that works with you, that backs you up with your patterns, or is it strictly just you doing it, or how do you source your patterns?
It's me. It's me doing 100% of the drafting and grading and revising and tweaking and all of that. I do have, last year I hired somebody to work with me. She's kind of my virtual assistant. She does a lot of like scheduling my newsletters and things like that, but she also sews. And her picture is actually on my website and quite a few places on the pattern site. She's my plus size model too. And so she's been helpful because her measurements match very closely to the top of my size line. So I use her as a fit model often, but it's still me doing the drafting and the grading and all of that.
Wow. That's got to be a very daunting task. I mean, very time consuming. So yeah, I can see your hands. You've been very busy at what you do.
It helps that I'm a workaholic.
Yeah.
I always have been.
Definitely. Wow.
Do you have
so where do you
to keep it straight? Like, do you have a planner? Do you, besides having help with your newsletters and things, do you have any tips for people trying to keep on top of everything?
So yeah, it is definitely like, even though I do all the work on the patterns, I am not a one-woman company, and I wouldn't want to give that impression that like, oh, look at everything she does. The first person that I hired as soon as I could afford to with my business was an accountant. So I have an accountant, and then after that, the next person was a lawyer. And then once I got to the point where I could afford it, because you know the accountant and the lawyer, you only need them a couple times a year, hopefully. But then I hired a house cleaning service right after that. That was the next thing. So and then just last year did I get some extra help when I hired my assistant. And then you were mentioning editing earlier, Dawn. That is actually something that within the last month I have started to outsource a little bit too. So I've got another freelancer that does the editing for me on a lot of the videos. I still do a lot of them myself, but she helps.
Oh, that's fabulous.
Yeah, it definitely, there's the blog planner, there's the to-do list, there's my workaholic tendencies, but I've also got a great team and a great family supporting me. My husband does most of the shipping of physical items when we sell patterns, paper patterns, or when we've done fabric sales before, and he's the one that handles all the shipping.
Oh, that's lovely.
And my kids bring me water when I forget my drink.
It's a family effort. That's good.
Have you started to teach your kids? Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. My kids have expressed some interest sometimes. Sometimes it's terrible, but it's just a matter of like, I need to get out of the sewing room for the day. So I think they would like to learn more than I've had time to teach them so far. So it's something we're working on.
Mm-hmm. I think that was my question, about passing it on. So that's a good point. Because we all want to see our business go forward, and we want our families to maybe take over the business. So yeah, as long as they're willing, I can train them up and show them, So that would be awesome to see.
We'll see.
Do you have any plans?
So where do you see?
Oh, sorry, Alethia. We have a bit of a lag tonight.
I think we had the same question. The future of your business.
That's probably where I'm bad, that I don't have like a 5-year plan. So much of it has happened in a relatively short time that really I could tell you like by the end of the year what I plan to have done, but beyond that, it's not something that I can, predict. Or I would love to be able to continue to create sewing patterns and continue to use whatever platforms are available to me to teach people to sew for themselves. So yeah, as long as I can do it, then I want to keep doing it.
Awesome. Linda Faye says you have very interesting blog content, especially on grading patterns. Do you want to talk about that?
Okay, yeah, I see it over there on the comments. Yes. That actually, the posts on grading patterns were born out of people who would email me. And so I have free patterns on my blog, and usually there's something that I drafted for myself. And so I just drafted it in my size, and then people would want different sizes. And people don't realize that there's not like a button that you could just push on the computer and tell it like, turn this into a, size whatever. It doesn't, the programs are not that good. So you still have to input like how much are you increasing in each point and stuff. So I ended up writing that post so that I could email it to those people who are asking for different sizes and saying like, well, here's how you do it. And also without having to say it, but like maybe they would get the idea that like, I can't just press a button and give you the size you're asking for. So yeah, that's how those came about.
Okay.
I found it quite surprising how many free patterns you do have, considering how much effort it does take to make a pattern, all the supporting documentation, everything. If you look, there's like quite a few free patterns here that must have taken a lot of time. Like I featured one on the That Sewing Blab Facebook page with the scalloped off the shoulder shirt with the scalloped shorts. Yeah, all fabulous patterns that I want to make sure all our viewers know are out there.
Yeah, just with the caveat that, they're all like one size only patterns pretty much. There's one t-shirt there that is in my full size range that it's kind of a sample. But yeah, once I learned how to draft digitally, it really became a lot faster for me to, it's not, I don't want to say like it's easy, but it's not a whole lot of extra work for me if I'm doing a pattern in my own size. It's really the things like grading and formatting that take forever, and then testing sizes beyond my own size. That's the other reason that generally everything on there is only one size, because I don't want to put something out there that I don't know is going to fit people for sure. And you can have good blocks, but you still need to actually like sew it up and see it on a body in that size to make sure that everything's working the way it's supposed to.
Yeah, we've had other pattern designers come on and say the same thing. It's tricky when you can only grade, if you're your fit model, up 2 or 3 sizes in the same down, and then people want a really wide variety of sizes.
Right.
Some people have only need them in a smaller amount of sizes because they only have the one fit model. So it does sound like it is a lot of work to make the high quality patterns that you have featured on Blank Slate Patterns. Right.
Yeah, and especially with the women's patterns too, not only do I test, does it fit the way it's supposed to, but we test fitting. Very few people have fit model proportions. So I try to put in every pattern, like, here are the adjustments you're going to want to make. Here are the measurements you're going to want to take on your own body to make sure this fits you. Because I don't really see the point in sewing for yourself if you're not going to make it fit yourself well. So I try to give people the tools to be able to do that.
Oh, that's fabulous.
Was that old saying that you give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day, but if you teach him how to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime. So yeah, you show him, you can't give, you can't tell everybody everything to do, but you can show them how. You can't give everything, but you can show them how to do it, as much as you possibly can.
Right, yeah.
That way, I think we do it like that,
well, and it's such a rough.
Yeah, so
I
that's
think it's such a revelation to think about how these things work together, because I knew how to draft like a standard bodice block, but until I took my own measurements and drafted one based on my measurements to see how different my block looks from the standard block, and then suddenly it was like, oh, like all those years of, sewing the McCalls and Simplicity, and I would just like pick based on whatever size I thought was closest to my size, and then things would still not work right. Like, when I was in high school and middle school, and it's like, oh, that's why. So yeah, I kind of, it seems like it should be easy, but I know that it wasn't for me. I just thought there was something wrong with me. It never occurred to me that like, oh, maybe I need to change this pattern.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people think that, and a lot of people get frustrated. I'm taking my rings off, y'all. I think a lot of people get frustrated because they feel like I'm a size 10, so in retail, I should be able to go to size 10 pattern, so it's straight out the bag and it's perfect. And like you said, people don't realize that you have to plug in your measurements. We have different body styles and types. So a lot of people get frustrated because it doesn't work out the first time. It's just miscommunication. But with that being said, do you still work with commercial patterns? Do you need to use them?
I'm sorry, it broke up. What did you ask?
Do you still work with commercial patterns?
Oh, yes, I do. Since I've discovered independent patterns, I generally prefer them. And I have to say lately, because I never seem to find exactly what I want, so I end up drafting it myself. But no, I still own commercial patterns. There's one or two that, like, my tried and true kind of fallbacks that I will still work with for myself. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
I see on your website that you also offered to teach people how to draft their own patterns, PDF patterns. Do you still do that? That was from like 2013, so I wanted to double check.
So those are actually kind of like self-paced online courses that I've got, and it's all video that's recorded. So yeah, those are kind of perpetually available because it's the wonders of modern technology that don't need me to physically be in the classroom to be learning that, or for the content delivery. So I'm still available if people have questions from those courses, but yeah, I have one on how to format things for PDF patterns and getting familiar with the software that I use to do it, and then another one that's just specifically on grading.
Oh, that's cool. Shoot, couldn't figure out how to unfocus it for a second. Well, that's fabulous. And it's great that it's kind of content that's out there that people can get and work at their own pace, but that you don't have to keep updating it and working with it.
Yeah, a lot of people like to be able to go back and rewatch things too. So that's in those courses too. They can watch as many times as they want.
Is that with Adobe Illustrator that you teach for those lessons?
Yes, that's the software I use. That's the most accessible, I think, to the person drafting at home to create things that they want to sell. There are other software, I think, that's less expensive if you just want to draft for yourself. But many of those have license terms that don't let you sell what you draft if you create something new. So that's not a problem with Illustrator.
Fabulous. Well, I should check and see if we're getting, we're over the half hour, so we should see if we have some questions. If anyone who's put a question down below would like to hop on camera to ask Melissa your question, just let me know in the comments and we'll invite you in. It would be fabulous to have someone on camera, although it sounds like Carol might have bad internet or something because of a storm, so the fabric whisperer might not be able to come on. But let's see, maybe we'll end.
Yeah, I'll ask this while we're waiting for somebody to be bold to come on. What is your most popular pattern to date, Melissa?
That would probably be a tie between the Shoreline boat neck, which that one got even more popular last week when we re-released it, because we that was one of my original patterns that only went up to an extra large. And I've been working through some of my older patterns with my assistant at expanding the size range. So that one last week, we just released it with the expanded size range. And then the other most popular one is actually one of my baby patterns. There's a crisscross dress that people love. And so that one is really, really popular, like year round. Even though to me it feels like a summer dress, I think people put it on their babies like over a onesie, and then they wear it in the winter too.
Now, are you wearing a blank slate pattern right now? Is that something that you made?
It is something that I made. It is not a pattern that's available in my shop yet. It's something I've been playing with, so we'll see if that's available later.
Okay, very nice. I love that print. It's very nice.
Thank you. This is a Girl Charlie print, I think, from one of their Bolt fabric lines.
Okay. Wow.
It looks like people are a bit shy this evening to come on camera, so we might start asking some of the questions below. But if you do get a little braver, guys, just put in the comments and we'll call you on in. So, the first question's from Faye. We kind of answered the first part, but she wanted to know why you started your blog. But I think more specifically, it'd be interesting to find out how it has evolved.
I think it has evolved. Social media. Social media was not as huge a thing when I first started blogging. Like, blogging was the social media. And now, like, I create 2 blog posts myself a week, and then I have a team member that'll do 1 post. So there's 3 posts a week. And I spend almost as much time, or my assistant spends almost as much time, making sure that those posts end up across social media as we do creating the posts almost. So it's definitely evolved in terms of I have to be in many more places. Since I've started doing more video, I feel like that, that's yet another platform to take care of and to kind of modify things for all these different platforms, whereas it used to be just the blog. And now it's definitely part of the planning to look at how is this going to work on YouTube, and how is this going to work on Instagram, and what are we going to put on Facebook, and all of those things.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So I was just reading the next question and trying to find a picture of it while you were talking. The next question is from Myra, and she says she loves your Rivage raglan. I don't know if I pronounced that right. Pattern, and she's going to purchase it tonight. Is the model in the gray and white version you? Hair is a little different. And she says, nice photo.
Thank you. Yeah, that's me. I chopped my hair off like totally about 4-ish years ago. And it's something like all my life. I've done this like about every 5 years. I'll decide I'm tired of my hair and I will pixie cut, and then I'll kind of grow it out and play with it for the next 5 years or so, and then I'll decide to cut it off again. So yeah, that one's me, and yeah, a little bit shorter there than it is tonight. I'm in a growing out phase right now.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I like that top.
Thank you.
That's very nice.
Thanks, Myra. That was a great question.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this question from Sherry Williams. That was our guest from last week. She asked, how did you learn to do the PDF patterns? Did you teach yourself, find courses online?
No, the reason I have a course online at all is because when I was learning, there wasn't anything that I could learn like that would teach me just PDF patterns. So I kind of knew Illustrator already back from when I was working and teaching. And then it was a matter of like trial and error and trying to figure out like, how do I get what's on paper into the computer, and how do I measure things, and how do I make sure they're the right lengths and sizes and that they print and all of those things. So yeah, I kind of had to teach myself all of that. And I've gotten better and I've gotten faster. And when I got to a point where I felt like I was pretty competent at doing it myself is when I created the course, so other people could shortcut that process that took me a couple years to get where I felt competent.
Have some of your past students from that course gone on to sell their own patterns?
Yeah, I believe so. There's been a few.
Fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
We have another question from Connie. She says, do you have time left over to sew for yourself?
So I did this sneaky thing where I made it my job to sew and like sew for myself. So it's kind of like I have to sew for myself. Oh man, darn. So yeah, I do normally when I'm sewing for myself, though it's in service of a pattern that we're developing. I actually made a resolution last year because I was kind of getting burned out on sewing and like, oh, I gotta go sew, that to buy some other indie patterns and like sew stuff from other people's patterns and take a little bit of the thought out of it for myself so that I could just enjoy the process of sewing something for myself. So yeah, I do that now when I need a break. I go sew somebody else's stuff.
Now, do you schedule that in? Do you say, I'm going to block this time out, or you just sew when it hits you?
Usually when it hits me, usually it's like, I need this thing in my wardrobe. And so then I'll make time to sew that thing. I try, especially now that I've hired some more people to help, I try not to work on the weekends. So if I want to sew something for myself, a lot of times then I'll have time on the weekend to do it because I'm not officially working.
Gotcha. Okay.
Faye has another question. She wants to know if you had any formal training in pattern making.
So I came at it from the costume design angle. Like my background in high school and in college, I veered away a little bit and I went into film and English. I have a double major. I got 2 degrees, one in English and one in film. And so that's what I was formally studying, but then I still kept getting pulled in the costume department because of my background, because I had done that all through high school. So yeah, I came at it from that angle instead of fashion training. It was in the theater department.
Connie would like to know, what sizes do your patterns go up to?
So my children's patterns go up to a size 8, a kid's size 8, and the women's patterns, some of them go up to a size 3X, which my size 3X is for a 53-inch bust. And then some of them that we have, some of the older ones that haven't been updated, they stop at an extra large, which I believe was a 45-inch bust. If I'm remembering right, it might be 44. The size chart is listed on my site.
Fantastic. And we have one last question from Carol. I think we might have addressed it before. Have you thought about continuing pattern for young men now that your boy or boys are older? There is a need, she says.
So I've thought about it and I've gotten a couple emails about it, but then the thing is, when I've actually gone to test the idea, like I can't really even find that many people that are sewing for their older boys. So I'm not sure that there's enough of a market to support that yet, which is why I haven't jumped into it. And it's not something I want to definitely say no to, but it's not a priority at the moment. Like if I need to sew for my own kids, then I might continue in that vein, because then the time spent is worth it because I'm spending that time on my kids too. But just to do it, I don't know if there's enough of a market for that yet.
Alethia, you have a question as well?
Yeah, that was my other question. You were talking about pattern your sizing earlier. So how do you gauge your size, and how did you determine how you were going to size your patterns? Because obviously they're not standard sizing, and I know you've kept a wide range of figures involved. So how do you determine how you're going to size your patterns? What measurement charts do you go by?
Well, so they're based on kind of a blend of the ATSM standards and the like ready-to-wear sizes. I kind of started looking at a whole bunch of different places, and ready-to-wear sizes even vary so much that at some point I just kind of had to pick, like, what do I think? I do tend to draft for a C or a D cup because there are very few American women who are that like standard B size cup that the commercial patterns used to mostly be drafted for. I mean, I'm not. And I'm not even very well endowed, but I'm not a B cup, you know? So I right off the bat, I was like, I'm not going to draft for something that's going to not fit most people. And then, yeah, so then I kind of did all this research and then sort of just picked, like, where am I going to cut off my sizes? What makes sense to me? And it's really difficult when it gets into plus sizing because the standards, the ASTM standards have not been updated since like 1980, I think. They literally haven't updated anything above a size 20, I think. And their size 20 is equivalent more to like my size extra large, and you know, it's not even that big a size. And so when I'm looking at the plus size standards that they have, they're very outdated. And I'm hoping that that's something that they update soon, because the measurements and the quality of the measurements for the smaller sizes that are available are so far beyond what they've got available for plus sizing that it makes it difficult. It really does.
But do you find that yours are more true to size? Have you had any issues? Because obviously I know with your sizes ranging the way they do, you have a large range. It's probably kind of hard to test fit each size, and maybe you did. I don't know. So did you go through that process of testing size?
We do have multiple testers for every size before we release a pattern. And the phrase true to size is it's one of my pet peeves that people ask, like, is it true to size? Because patterns are drafted on measurements. So if you're looking at the measurement table and you're choosing your size from that and then sewing it up, then yes, you should be able to expect consistency. But so many people think, like, I'm a size 10, and they don't even look at the measurement chart of what a size 10 is. And then they're like, oh, well, it's not true to size. I'm like, no, it's, you know, the 10 is just the arbitrary number. And I've even played before with, like, let's just not have these number sizes, you know, because I know there's a lot of discussion with, like, you know, oh, I don't want to be an X, or I don't want to be a 28, or, you know, I get hung up on these things. I'm like, well, let's just have size like pink and blue and purple instead, because that's really how arbitrary the sizes are. It's the measurements that are important, you know?
Yeah, I like the way you think. That's a great idea. I mean, because even in retail, you know, we have such a problem with sizing. You know, well, you see a number. My thing is, I tell my customers and clients that I work, just cut the tag a number out, or just take a Sharpie and write over the number if you want to be something else. You know what I'm saying? Just make sure you get a good fit. But I like that you do, like you said, I guess no size is true to size. Like you said, you still have to do the work and you still have to measure. So what you're saying is that your patterns are basic, just a general go-to for you to size up or size down, just like you would do with commercial.
Yeah, I mean, you like cover up the number at the top or the letter at the top. Just look at the measurements and compare your own. You know, there's some retail sizes that are going to be bigger than mine, and then there's some retail sizes that are going to be smaller than mine. And it really, I love that meme that's going around, and it's like, if you sew it, it's whatever size you say it is, because it is. It's your size, you know?
And you know what? That's true, because, you know, hey, I made it. It's my size. So why even put a number to it? I like that little thought process. Yeah. We should do that. Yeah. No size. Well, and I think the frustration people have with retailers and vanity sizing and things like that is because the retailers don't share their measurements. Because you wouldn't be frustrated about picking up a 10 in one store that fits and a 10 in another store that didn't, if you knew that, you know, the measurements behind that number, but you don't. So then, like, it gets really frustrated. And then I think, especially in our culture, we tend to think, oh, well, it's because there's something wrong with me. And it's not at all. So, yeah, that's one of the reasons I love sewing, is because then you can just kind of circumvent that whole mess, because you know from the start, like, here's the measurements, here's what I'm going to do. Right.
We almost need it on the outside of the store. Like, you know, when you go into Subway or something, they might have the nutritional information. You almost need that on the outside of the ready-to-wear store, you know, general bust size, you know, and you just check it out. then you'd have an idea.
Right.
Oh, this store is not for me.
Right,
or,
right.
"Oh,
And
this
I
is
mean,
now."
even now when I go shopping, like, you know, you've got to take in like 3 or 4 sizes to figure out like which one is the one that's going to fit me today.
Yes.
Right. And I think that's what messes with people's head too, because a size 10 is not the same every time you see it.
Oh no.
You have in one store, you could have different makes, different vendors, and each vendor has their own sizing chart.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's what messes with people's head, because they think, okay, well, I wear a 10, I wear a 10, so why does this not fit me? Oh, I gained weight, or I lost weight, or what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
So you bring up a good point, but a 10 is not a 10 everywhere. A 12 is not a 12 everywhere.
No.
So it ain't patterns. You know, Vogue is different from McCall's. McCall's is different from Simplicity. You know, even though the numbers stay the same, their ease design is different. You know what I'm saying? So I think these are the things that we need that needs to be educated, or that we need to be educated on. You know, especially newbie sewers, even advanced sewers, because sometimes we can misunderstand that a size is not just a size. You know what I'm saying? It's just a starting point, and work your way around that. You know?
Yeah.
And even in sewing, it's important that you look at the tissue, the finished measurements, so you can get a better idea of what the sizes are. Because even though the numbers on the pattern says one thing, you can have like an 8-inch ease markup, and it blow your mind. Oh, it fit like a sack, you know?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that can be taught.
And I think that's why I tend to prefer indie patterns, is because I think indie pattern designers are more aware of that, and more, at least the ones that I've sewn, they're better at putting in more information for you so that you can, you know, determine that stuff without like I remember sewing costumes and using big 4 patterns and like having to measure the pattern pieces myself, because none of their measurements like were on there. I couldn't know like what's the high bust supposed to be for this, you know, or for all those people who don't know that they tend to be, that the default is a B cup. And then you wonder like, why is it fitting weird, you know? So in my own patterns, I try to provide, you know, like, here's the measurements. If you don't know, because you're like, you know, all over the chart here, start with this one, because for this pattern, this is the important measurement, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I like where Cherie says that a lot of us don't know how to make our measurements. But I will say this, that a lot of the pattern companies offer the chart to show you how to measure, you know, where you need to measure, like what's the upper chest, what's the full bust, you know, under bust, different like that. So that's a help,
Right.
But a lot of people don't know how to take measurements properly.
Right. I actually did a video on that, and that one I knew from back when I was doing costume design, because pants dropped below the waist, you know, a few decades ago. None of my girls ever knew where their waist was. And they're all like giving me these measurements, and it's this like teeny little like size 0 girl, and she'd be like, I have a 40-inch waist. And I'm like, oh no, you don't, honey. You measured in the wrong place. So yeah, so we had to do the whole like bend to the side. That's where you measure. Like, but it's like 9 inches above my pants. Like, yes, that's where your waist is.
Right. Wow. That is so true. All right, we have more questions, Dawn?
Yeah, we have another one from Faye. Which baby lock machine do you use, and do you use any other brands?
So disclaimer that I work with Baby Lock, so they've given me machines, but I use a Baby Lock Elizabeth is my main machine. I think that one has actually been discontinued though, and it's been replaced with the Catherine, I believe. And then I have a Baby Lock Imagine Serger, because the jet air threading in the automatic tension is so nice to have. And then I also have a Baby Lock cover stitch machine, and that's because I prefer to keep both of those machines set up. You can kind of see them behind me there, all of them back there. And I prefer to keep them all set up, because then that way I can just kind of switch from one machine to the other without having to convert the machine. So I don't use any other brands currently. I used to be very devoted, and I actually still own like 5 of them, to vintage Singer sewing machines. So over in my closet, I've pared down. I only have, okay, I take it back. I only have 3 of them now. At one point I had like 8, and my husband made me get rid of some of them.
Was
it
it hard to get?
No, because it wasn't like a bunch of different models. It's really these 2 models that I loved. So I had like 8 of them. So it wasn't like I had a featherweight and then I had a, you know, treadle machine and I had this and I had that. It was all like 503 machines.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, Dawn, what do we have next?
I was just going to ask, how did the relationship with Baby Lock start?
I was friends with Kate from See Kate Sew, and she was working with Baby Lock. And the very first time I went to Quote Market, Kate was at the time living up in Dallas, and I'm in the Austin area, and then Quote Market every fall takes place in Houston. So she and I decided that we were going to drive down to Quote Market for the day and like meet up there in the morning and then like hang out all day until the afternoon and like just see who we could meet, see what it was all about. I mean, we didn't know anything at that point other than the blogging we did. So Kate at the time, like I said, was working with Baby Lock. So we were wandering around the Quote Market floor, and she introduced me to them because, you know, they wanted to say hi in person to her. And that's kind of how I met them and got started talking to them.
Oh, cool. Wow. That
Awesome.
is, we're getting towards the end. If they're, just ask really quick if there's any other questions that anyone has. If there is not, I'm close to the end. I have one more question. Do you think you'll write another book?
I wouldn't say no, but there is a lot more work for a lot less pay on a book than with everything else you do. It was really nice so that like my husband's granny who doesn't understand what my job is, it was really nice to be able to show her a book and like she understands that and like, oh, okay, you wrote a book. That's what you've been doing, you know? But it's so much work. And then you see such a small percentage of the work that gets put into that it's nice to have done once. I don't know that it would make sense to do again. And I think that also has to do with the current state of books in general and the publishing industry and how so much of that has moved online, and the dollars that people used to be spending on those types of things are being spent online. And I'm grateful for that because that enables my career. But it does make book writing make a little less sense.
Well, we are definitely towards the end of the show. We have one more question from Samina. How do you explain your profession to people who ask, what do you do?
So it depends on who's asking sometimes. Like if it's somebody who I think might know what sewing is, I might say that I design and write sewing patterns. If it's somebody like total stranger out of the blue, I might just say that I'm a writer, or I might just say that I'm a designer. And then if they ask further questions, then get into it. There's sometimes where even I just say, you know, I run a website, because that seems to be something easier for people, just like, oh, okay, that's cool, and like go on with their lives, you know, when they're just asking to be polite.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh. Well, you do wear many hats, so you can always pick one of them.
Yeah, see, that's the problem too, is that like, you know, if you say you do one thing, like, you know, like the book is the easiest thing for people to relate to, and it's such a small fraction of the stuff that I do, so.
Well, we're definitely almost out of time. Do you have any questions or anything you'd like to add, Alethia, before we sign off?
No, I just want to say this has been a great interview, and a lot of the ladies echo the same thing. A lot of great information. It's good to learn more of what you do, Melissa. And I'm definitely in tune. I would love to see the more patterns that you come out with. And I have my eye on a couple that I saw. So I'll be headed. So thanks so much for the good information. And you gave a lot of great tips and a lot of things for us to think about. You know, it's always a good conversation when we talk about sizing, when we're talking about patterns and, you know, developing those things. And it's certainly good to hear different perspectives, because last week we heard from, like we said, Cherie with My Daily Threads, and she's a pattern developer, also pattern designer. And she shared her perspective on the process as well, which has been great. So it's always good to hear from different people, you know, on the same perspective. So thank you for your input.
Thank you. Thank you both so much for having me. It's so interesting with this online world that like so much of the conversations don't actually take place kind of in real time or face to face even. So it's always interesting when there's something like this that's happening in real time and, you know, real people and you can see their faces.
Right, right. All right, well, certainly good to have you. Hope this won't be your last time joining us. We will eventually do like a where are they now? What are they up to? So stay tuned and look for us to come knocking again.
I would love to talk again.
Oh, that's fabulous.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you very much, Melissa. And I'll definitely keep watching your videos, your tutorials. I guess it is because you were a high school teacher, are very easy to follow, very straightforward, but great.
Thank you.
I'll see you online, even if you don't see us. Thank you very much for coming on, and thank you everyone who watched this evening. It was a great show, and we really appreciate that you watched. Have a good night.
Bye.